Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 235. And joining to me virtually and otherwise are writer, two-wheeling reporter Brian Robinson.
Greetings from the woods of Carroll County.
Yeah, you look great there. Over the Edge reporter Greg Carlos.
Hello, hello.
And our FYI reporter Stephanie Hart.
Hey everyone, nice to be back.
And we all say that. We'd love to, we really enjoy doing these podcasts and getting a chance to talk. Come on, Brian, just quit shaking your head. You get a chance to talk to you a little more personally than we can through the TV screen normally. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got cars we've tested. Stephanie's going to tell us a little bit about some of her upcoming FYI segments. We have a lightning round. We even have a viewer question. And I don't know if anybody's got a rant or rave, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Okay, announced just this week that we're doing this video podcast. The 2021 Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat, 6.2 liter V8, 710 horsepower, 0 to 60 like a motorcycle in 3.5 seconds. All right, folks, did we need this? Too much? Unexpected? How do you feel about it?
I mean, define need, because there's a lot of things I think I need.
Need for speed.
No, I mean, I really like the 392 Durango we drove, what was it, 2 years ago maybe?
Yeah.
That thing was awesome. So throw in more horsepower. I mean, I'm all for it. Looks like it's going to be a limited time, only 1 year they're going to make it. I don't think they're calling it necessarily a limited edition, but it's because it won't pass emission standards for 2022 model year as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, Dodge loves shoving big engines into things, and I love that about them. What I love about it is, if you remember, like when high horsepower trucks became a thing, like Lightning and Chevy had the SS 454, and the Dodge even put the Viper engine in the Ram, SRT10 Ram. All those were all rear-wheel drive only, and you couldn't tow anything with them. This thing, Dodge made a point of still all-wheel drive, just like the Trackhawk, and you can tow 8,700 pounds with it, which is more than a Chevy Tahoe. So I love the fact that they give you all that power, and it's still a real deal utility. I think the bigger question is, so it's almost like a mid-cycle for 21 across the Durango board, not just this. So they redid the exterior a little bit. The interior is way different. It's got a wraparound dash, almost straight out of the Challenger. And I know there's an all-new Grand Cherokee coming in 22. So I'm not sure why they would have went to such an extensive redesign. I don't know, is it going to stay on the Grand Cherokee chassis in 22, or is it going to go over to the Ram chassis?
That's one rumor, that it's going to go over to the Ram chassis. But, to fill up the plant, they may keep it the way it is. After all, this thing, Durango, is supposed to go away, because of lack of popularity. And look what they've done with it. They've made it kind of a performance icon where they're, really it's about the only thing. What else does the Dodge brand have anymore? Is that it? Except for the cars, obviously.
Charger and Challenger and Durango.
And they've still got the crossover.
Journey's going away. Grand Caravan's going away. Yeah.
So, I give them kudos. I think I think it's going to be around a while. It might be a limited production, but I marvel at what they've been able to do since everybody was convinced this was the dog and it wasn't going to play anymore. So we'll see.
I think it's even more spectacular how they can make it such a smooth powertrain, because it's totally docile on the highway. Like if you really don't want to get into it, I mean, it's totally fine with the 8-speed transmission. It's super smooth. And then you get into it and it's like, wow, this is awesome. But yeah, I mean, and the whole powertrain has really been around for a few years now. So they've worked out a lot of the kinks, if there were any to begin with.
Hey, Stephanie, I'm curious, you live in the city. Do many people have large SUVs there, as in comparison to the more rural areas where parking is a premium? Do you see a lot of them in your building or anything?
Not really. Honestly, no, not really. But I know there is a huge market for this vehicle and a lot of people who can't wait to drive something like this. So I think it will be pretty successful.
Yeah, I always, we always talk about all these. The SUVs kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you go into some of the narrow streets downtown with in low level, your parking garages where you can
Oh,
barely
yeah.
stand up in, and you're thinking, I don't, it's sort of like they don't meet up.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't use that here.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who could.
Speaking of big vehicles, one that we just recently had in, and I put a lot of miles on, 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 diesel. Pretty impressive from my end, 277 horsepower, but really 460 pound-feet of torque. Can tow 9,300 pounds. I managed mostly on highway driving about 27 miles per gallon on diesel. We've had a lot of talk about the different full-size pickup trucks as they come, and we got a new F-150 coming. And of course, for a long time, Chevrolet had the best ride, but arguably Dodge Ram has it now with the coil spring rear suspension. And a lot's been made about the big tablet in the Ram. And of course, they've sold more than Chevy up until recently. But I got to tell you, this thing on some very rutty dirt roads was absolutely quiet. There was no frame shake. I mean, unless the road was washboard, you really didn't even realize it was an old style solid rear axle pickup truck. It's amazingly impressive. And when you figure this is what this particular segment has got now, they're amazing in what the comforts they provide, how quiet they are, soundproofing, ride quality, acceleration. This was the quietest diesel that I think I've ever driven. I couldn't get over how quiet it was. It's kind of a shame diesels are falling out of favor because this is one impressive vehicle. And my take on it was, if this is the also ran in the business, it's an amazing market segment of vehicles.
Yeah, it's smooth. GM just has a way with making quiet interiors. Their sound deadening is top notch, and not just talking about engine noise coming in, but is it for me?
No,
That's me, John. Don't worry. I was just calling to tell you. You're up next.
Yeah, it's from sound deadening, from road noise, wind noise, engine noise. It's all good with GM.
excuse me.
Yeah, sure thing.
He's really taking that.
Yeah, well, no, hey, you got
Hey,
to do. So, I mean, he hit on with the 27 miles a gallon. I mean, that's incredible for a full-size pickup truck, but that's really what it's all about because it doesn't even tow as much as the 6.2 liter.
Yeah.
But I still have my issues with the Silverado interior. I'm still not a fan. But the looks exterior-wise are growing on me. I don't know. I still like the Ram more.
Do you not like?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you not like the functionality of the Silverado, or is it more of like a style standpoint?
Yeah, it's more just a style. It still looks like it's from the 90s.
Everything's blocky. I totally agree. I think it works fine, but it's just not good to look at.
We've said that numerous times, and it's true. However, I will say that it's got like an 8-inch screen, but by these days that's considered small. But it was surprisingly adequate, more than adequate for a long journey. And I did like having all the controls in a familiar spot, even though they may look a little arcane. You didn't take any time at all to get used to this vehicle. It was like, okay, it's familiar, it all works. The only thing that threw me was finding the four-wheel drive controls. We're used to seeing something that's kind of hefty stick out at you, and it's really just a small button pad up on the very top left of the dash, and not particularly, obviously marked either. They've got a nice readout in the gauge cluster, but so with the exception of that, you felt right at home the minute you got in it. So I guess there is something to say for not necessarily being all brand new looking in the inside.
Yeah, and I will say they do more than anybody else. They think of a lot of little things that just to make your truck life better. All the tie downs are like exactly
Oh,
where you would want them to be.
fabulous in the
The little
bed.
steps and the bump, everything. Just a lot of little things that you don't expect, but are nice when you see them there.
While I was on the phone with the telemarketer, did you mention anything about pricing, about how much the diesel costs?
We didn't say anything about that, but last I looked it up, I think it's about a $2,500 increase. So I think the 1,500 with the Duramax is about like 53 grand to start off, and then it can go way up from there.
I have to say, if I was going to get it, I'd probably consider it. I mean, right now diesel's pretty cheap, so it's not such a big deal, but who knows what it'll be a year from now. But interesting vehicle, and a good execution, it seems to be. Okay, Stephanie, actually, you've been sitting there patiently, and now it's your turn, because you have been busy this summer getting your plans together for your FYI segments for our 40th anniversary season, which starts the second weekend in September. You want to give us a little preview of what you've got in store for everybody?
Yeah, I have been pretty busy. So we're really excited about our Benji's drive-in piece. That's going to be
next. Explain what Benji's is for people that aren't from Maryland. I mean, it's an icon here.
Yeah, Benji's is an old school drive-in. It's been around seemingly forever.
Yeah.
And it's, real nostalgic, and you can drive right in and see movies. The movies are from like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Great to bring the whole family. You have the summer air, the smell of popcorn, brings back a lot of memories. And this is great for families to take their families because social distancing is already built in.
Now, Benji's is riding the wave of outdoor movie theaters being rediscovered, right? There's something else going on around the country.
Yeah, I mean, nationwide, people are heading to these drive-ins more than ever because they can't go to traditional movie theaters right now in most cities. So there are only about 300 drive-ins left across the country. So, they've been seeing a surge. They've been becoming popular again. And we're also seeing a lot of these pop-up drive-in movie theaters out in parking lots at movie theaters around the country, like Horizon Cinemas in Fallston, Maryland. So where, no one can go inside and see the movie. So the movie is now being shown on a big screen in the parking lot. So people are enjoying driving up to that and seeing current movies in that sort of style. Was
it Walmart and some restaurants are getting in on that too?
Yeah, I think everyone who can is trying to get in on it because it's so popular. And, it's great for social distancing. You can just stay in your car with your family and you don't really have to interact with anyone. Now, Benji's does have a snack bar that's pretty busy.
Very, very important.
A lot of good food. I had some cotton candy while I was there. I had some popcorn. I think I had a pretzel, soda. But, you walk in, you wear a mask, and it seemed pretty safe to me. But people seemed really happy that they could finally get out of the house and enjoy some sense of normalcy, since it's been, really uncomfortable for everyone just staying at home, not being able to go or do anything.
You two guys have any drive-in movie stories you can talk about?
None that I can talk about.
I've never been to a drive-in.
I was going to ask you if you'd ever been to one.
No,
I haven't been to Benji's, but when we go up to Michigan every year with some family up there, and there's a huge one up there. We go every year when we go up there, and it's just a big outdoor party.
When I was growing up, there were thousands of drive-ins. I think at one time in the 50s, there was like 5,000 of them coast to coast, and we had at least 3 of them in my smallish North Carolina town. One was called a Starlight. And, it was a great place to go in the summertime, whether you had a convertible or not. And more than once, you thought you were going to crack the window by putting the speaker on it. Of course, now I guess it's all done through your radio, I assume. I haven't been to one myself in a long time.
Yeah, all through the radio.
Yeah.
You just tune to a certain station and the movie comes
There it
on
is.
through that.
And if you hate the movie,
Yeah.
you could just pull up another one on your phone. And you're cool.
Yeah,
Still
and
enjoy the
they're color now, John.
Yeah, I know. Thanks a lot. I do remember seeing some black and white. What else you got up your sleeve?
Also, I visited an artist in Ellicott City, Maryland, who paints on vehicles. He specializes in painting on semi-trucks. And I mean, the work is just fantastic. Beautiful beach scenes on these huge trucks. He does lettering. He does a little bit of everything. He even played the guitar for us. He's quite a character, really creative. And John, apparently you interviewed him about 30 years ago too, when he just
I
opened
know.
up his shop.
And I'm absolutely embarrassed that I don't remember it. But, you know, it's the little gray cells have vacated me. But, you know,
Hopefully he's not watching.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm sure he's very gracious because he's let us into his studio twice. But the interesting part is, and a lot of folks, I'm sure you may have heard us talk before, we start our 40th season this fall, which is an amazing event. But a lot of what we're going to be doing is either revisiting, you know, folks that we have interviewed before or showing you clips from them. And, you know, we're even trying to bring back some of our old segments like Car of the Week. So anywho, I thought it was great that, because we had actually been to Benji's before too.
Yes.
A long time ago, back in the early days. Because right now, because of the pandemic, we're staying a little closer to home than we normally do for MotorWeek. So a lot of good stories locally. Okay, with that sounds terrific. Can't wait to see the finished product. And thanks to everybody out there that at Benji's and the rest of our friends that make these segments possible. Lightning round. We have 30 seconds to talk about a trending automotive topic. And the week that we are doing this podcast, Ford Motor Company made some news. Number one, they made a profit for the last quarter, which wasn't expected. But despite recent major product launches, the Mustang Mach-E and the new Bronco coming up, Ford CEO Jim Hackett is unexpectedly retiring effective the 1st of October. COO Jim Farley will be taking his job. What do you think of the timing? What does this mean for Ford? Why did it happen? What do you think?
The timing is a little bit interesting just because they have had such a pretty major year from a launch standpoint. And I don't think a lot of people saw it coming, at least me. I know there's a lot more industry insiders who are more in tune with this stuff, but I didn't see anything like this happening. But I know Jim Farley is a huge car guy. Hackett wasn't necessarily a car guy. He came from a different industry. But you know, I having never met Jim, I never had a conversation with him. You know, I've read things that he just wasn't fitting in at Ford. But I know Jim has been with Ford for a while, and I know he did some good things over at Toyota. He seems like again, like I said, he's a very big car guy. So I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, I think this was just a matter of time before this happened. I think they've been grooming him for that for a while. And like Greg hinted at, I mean, he's a great guy, car guy. I've known him back since the Toyota days. This is where I make old jokes about myself because, I remember him back starting at Toyota. And, just a great guy to hang out with, very knowledgeable.
Very.
I mean, Ford, I don't always understand the decisions that they make, but they seem to make very good ones. I mean, they're the only ones that didn't have to take a bailout because they saw that whole thing coming and reorganized before the crash happened. They consistently have the F-150 up top. So, I mean, they have futurists at Ford that's their whole job is to predict the future. And then they make decisions based on what these people come up with. And they're obviously good at it.
You're right. Most experts, I agree on Farley. He's a really terrific guy. I hope he does well. But they've had 4 CEOs since the Great Recession, and it's usually always been because the stock price and the investors were not impressed, and that by extension sort of means the Ford family. Stock price is down like 40% since since Hackett took over. So I think that's what doomed him. Remember, he was the guy that stepped up and said, we're getting rid of all of our
Our cars.
passenger cars.
Yeah.
And everybody thought he was crazy. And now everybody else is doing the same thing.
Yeah,
So,
but it'll be interesting to see if they come back on that because,
yeah.
I mean, if everyone else is getting out, maybe we don't want to stay in the pool. So we'll see.
Well, Honda and Toyota have made it very clear that, and even Hyundai, that, they see a car market there. And, the last mid-size American car looks like it's going to be the Malibu, and they're not sure that's going to get redone. So, unfortunately, I think Hackett was they didn't give him long enough to see his vision through. But from our standpoint, product-wise, like Brian said, it certainly seems to be working, but I guess the stock price is not impressed. They said it went up a little bit when his retirement was announced.
Yeah, the Bronco is going to be huge. Everyone knows that. I'm skeptical on the Mach-E Mustang. The Mustang people are never going to accept that. I don't know that the EV people will accept it either. So a little skeptical on that one, but the Bronco is going to be huge.
He's made a lot of investments into the autonomous market as well. Okay, anyone else have anything else for that? Let's move on to our...
I
Go
just
ahead.
know from what I read, I know Jim wants to create a really unique business model plan, bridging tech and traditional products. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of this.
Do you remember any more of the details of what he had in mind?
No, it was sort of a blanket statement, but
Well,
you can never know. He had mentioned in the article I read online that he sees the pandemic as an opportunity for Ford. So it will be interesting to sort of wait and see what happens over the next few months.
I think you have to. I think you're absolutely right, because I think of all of the domestic car companies and even most of the imports, he seemed to be looking towards the future, like Brian said, futurist, more than anybody else. And of course, that raises a lot of skepticism. I personally was surprised, I guess, to some degree, but then when you look at what's going on Wall Street, probably not. Okay, let's move on to our viewer question. It's from Donald. How does emergency stopping technology handle slippery conditions? I assume he's talking about skid control and ABS brakes.
I thought I took it as the like emergency automatic braking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did too. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But I've driven in the rain with all of that automatic emergency braking, and it worked just great. I didn't notice anything,
Didn't shake you up or unnerve you or anything.
No.
Yeah, I would just say it would depend on what the slippery conditions are coming from. If it's just wet roads, I think they work pretty much as the same they would on normal roads, other than maybe stopping distance would be a teeny bit longer. I think the bigger issue is if he's talking about like slushy type conditions or snow.
Yeah.
All those things
Split view. Yeah.
Yeah, all those things are camera based. So you get some snow or some slush covering up those cameras, and they're pretty much non-functioning at that point. So
I mean, it's basically the existing ABS and anti-skid technology married together with, a proximity system. And the point that you just made, I've experienced that, just a dirty camera or a dirty front radar sensor can really kind of throw this off, to the extent that what I've noticed in the last couple of vehicles we've had in for testing is that the systems seem to be turning up the sensitivity to actually, if you get near hitting either another vehicle or a pedestrian, the warnings seem to be going off quicker. But so Donald, I don't think you have to worry. Most of the time it happens very quickly and you're in a short distance. However, I will say that the one thing that nobody really likes to talk about is the limits of these systems. And the limits really depend on your speed. The slower you are going when they activate, the better off you are at having an emergency stop that is complete and without any other incident. So
they will still slow you down though at higher speeds though.
Absolutely.
So they do still help.
Oh, absolutely. But there's usually a limit, which they don't like to publish. And it's usually like, it'll drop your speed 45 miles per hour, that sort of thing. So they're not, you can't go 70 and then expect it to bring you to a halt. But anyway, it's marvelous technology. Any rant and raves from anyone? Anything stuck in your craw this week, or something you want to congratulate people on?
Nothing
We're
I
hearing
want to
crickets.
congratulate on. I think I'm just, having to kind of schlep my kid around a lot more now. I'm really over subcompact crossovers because it's impossible to, just give me a midsize or even a compact sedan, honestly, because it's harder to get a child seat. And, so I wanted to go golfing last weekend, and I had my child seat in there. I had to put down the rear passenger seat behind me so that I could get my clubs in. I had to move my seat forward to an uncomfortable position, and the passenger front seat all the way forward so that my rear facing child seat would fit. All this stuff so I could just go golfing. And I know it's not the car I would choose, and people have different needs for different cars, but it's just, I don't think that you should go looking for a compact crossover and assume you're getting more space than a sedan, because you really aren't.
Just don't go golfing. Problem solved.
We just had
I need to do something.
We just had in that Buick Encore GX, and I was surprised, and I thought it was great to find that it had the front passenger seat folds flat, which so you could carry longer things. And I think we need to see some more innovation maybe in the packaging of some of these small vehicles, because after all, they're supposed to replace small cars. So
that's what they keep telling me.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to say is I've done a lot of highway driving in the last 2 weeks. It just seems to, one thing you do see is an increased police presence. And I think that's because people seem to be ignoring the roads and manners even more so than normal. It seems to be this pandemic, since it has decreased traffic volume in many places, has really brought out the worst in a lot of drivers. They were probably bad drivers anyway, and now they're worse. You really have to keep your antenna up. And it's not just speed, it's lane changing, you name it.
Yeah, I agree. I've noticed just an increase in just bad drivers, careless drivers. I went out yesterday very briefly, and, I was cut off twice.
Yeah.
People not paying attention, like they've been inside too long, and now they're finally getting back on the road, and they've just forgotten all the rules of the road, really.
Sorry about that. My bad.
I knew it.
What did he say?
It was Robinson who cut you off.
Yeah, he just didn't want you to let you know it. All right, everybody. I think that wraps up our MotorWeek podcast. This is number 235. I want to thank Brian Robinson, Greg Carlos, and Stephanie Hart. Thank you all for taking time away today and joining us. And just because we're not basically back at MotorWeek headquarters, I don't want to forget our normal audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who's spent many years making us sound as well as we do. Our podcast creator, of course, creator is Bob Mixter. And our producer, as today, like most weeks, is Greg Carlos. Thank you, Greg, for pulling it all together. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to check out MotorWeek on public television stations around the country. We're also on the Motor Trend Network. You can not live, but you can stream us complete episodes on PBS Living. And by the way, if you haven't seen any of the details about our 40th anniversary season, we are bringing back the old Car of the Week segments, although this time we're trying to mix some video in with the pictures. So go on to our social media sites and our motorweek.org site to get the details on that. If you've got a little bit of, if you're not camera shy, take a shot of yourself with your favorite vehicle and show us what you've got, and maybe you'll end up on the show. And we've got a couple of goodies.
We need some more entries. So far, it's mostly just Robinson shirtless with his Mustang.
I don't even want to go there.
That was before I went out and cut Stephanie off, but it's all good.
Come join and be part of the fun that is Motor Week. Thanks, everybody. Keep that back on. Thanks for being a part of Motor Week.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.